Good afternoon, good morning, wherever time you may be watching this on YouTube or listen to this on the podcast. I want to welcome you to another episode of Things That I Pray For, Edition Prayers. I'm your host, Raymond, and just like always, the goal behind the podcast is to help unify others and help them understand that they're not alone, and also to unify every day with everyday prayer life. Um, in this episode of this podcast, is the reason behind it is to let chips fall where they may lay. Um, the title is trying to push the issues. The verses will be coming from Job 1, verse 20 through 22. Also, still in Job, it's going to be Job 13, verse 15, Job 14, verse 14, and the final set of verses will be coming from Job 42, verse 16 through 17. We'll have some bonus notes dealing with the common phrase, let the chips fall where they may lay. We'll be defining words such as allow, circumstance, motionless, struggle, push, and our final word would be just defining is issue. Um, Job is a very familiar passage in the Bible. If you're not familiar with Job, I highly recommend it to give you somewhat of insight. If you're not familiar with it, it is dealing with an individual that is caught between what the devil is trying to do to his life versus God is watching over his life. The devil has an issue, like he always does, trying to get Job to go against God, despite whatever circumstances he's doing. And during this whole time, God is allowing the devil to do what he wants to do, but he can't kill him. And Job is a victim of the feud between devil and God, but he's throughout this whole process, Job does not go against God, despite whatever the issues may be. That's just to give you a backstory to Job. Like I said, we have several different chapters we're going to cover. I'm not trying to cover the whole book of Job. Job has 42 different chapters, so feel free. I highly recommend it to go back and read Job. To give you a somewhat of idea, somewhat of something to grasp on while I was studying this. I took the idea of individuals not taking life seriously. In the last week or so, I've been on vacation, and I've been on vacation. I always take it this time of year for several reasons, and one of the reasons is to get away from work, to get away, to have a vacation time from work. It's not to go anywhere, but it's to actually enjoy life. And in that sense of enjoying life, my idea of enjoying life is, like I said, to get away from work, to spend time with family. It's just to soak up the stuff that I miss while working all the time. While on vacation, I celebrate my birthdays. I celebrate the small things like sit down and watching TV, watching movies, laughing, eating. What something that happened this year versus any other year. I actually attended a funeral. A young man, not to put his business out there, he just went through a tough time in life, and unfortunately he passed. I known this young man for 10 plus years, and he was younger than me, and to see the aftermath of his presence, it was a hard thing to see. To see that he was loved, see that he was a good friend, a good brother, a good cousin or neighbor or grandson, a good child to a lot of people, and that really touched me. So, um, while I'm vacationing, I'm getting away from stuff. I seen how this individual, this young man's life affected so many, and that's basically the story behind this one. To get into these notes, the first, like I said, to give you a little backstory, the bonus notes. Um, we use this phrase a lot. Let the chips fall where they may lay. So we often try to continue to fix what we think is broken. We go through life and we see a flaw, and we try to include ourselves into it to make it better from what we think it should be better. So sometimes broken things need to be put together, but with the help of others. I've seen this family broken for the loss, but not understanding that the loss of this young man brought this family together. They brought them together because they all could have one thing that's glued them together. One thing, one individual that kept this family together, despite whatever they might be going through in the past. Tough love is necessary, but it hurts to give and get, and that's true. We often go through life trying not to hurt each other's feelings, be it if you're related to someone or a friend to someone. We try not to hurt each other's feelings because we're not trying to hurt each other's feelings to scare them away. But sometimes it's best to hurt someone's feelings to get them to realize what they truly mean to you. Now, with that said, that's on the giving side. On the getting side, if someone is giving you tough love, it's for a reason. It's for you to open your eyes and understand, to get to be the reality, not a fiction of what's going on around you. Another note is to allow events to happen without trying to change them. That's real tough. That is real tough when you try to let the chips fall where they lay. You want to reach out and grasp. You want to put your own input, and your input might not be what's needed at that time. You must be willing to accept whatever the outcome might be. Must be willing to accept it. Not all outcomes are positive. Not all outcomes are negative, but there's going to be an outcome. And another note is that whatever it may be. Also, I failed to mention, during this vacation of mine, I always take, for one of the reasons, is not just celebrating birth and celebrating family quality time. We have a camp meeting. And this camp meeting it's up to like 5-6 churches at points that actually unite throughout the county, and we all go to church together. And one of the preachers was preaching, and he said something. He said, "You cannot choose the outcome. You can choose this. You can choose whatever you choose to involve in, be it right, be it wrong, be it you go left or right, be it up or down, be it forward or reverse. You can choose that part, but you cannot choose what comes after that. You cannot choose the aftermath." And that's true. That's life. Just like when I actually started this podcast, I started I started for certain intentions, certain reasons, but I can't choose who gets affected. I can't choose who listens. I can't choose who watches. I can't choose what they comment or whatever. I cannot choose that. All I can do is choose to actually do it. That's why when I do these podcasts, or be it you watch it or be it you listen to it, I always tell you, just don't take my word for it. I in every title, in every episode, I actually read the verses. I actually state where the information is coming from, and therefore you can go and you can choose to go out and do it for yourself. You can choose to go out and read it. You can choose to go out and study it. I give you every word. I try to, as we used to say in the military, break it Barney style. Break it down Barney style. I try to break everything down Barney style. If you can watch the video, you'll see. I actually have notes. I don't know if it, yeah, there it goes. I actually have notes. I have a script that I read from. And I know it seems like, well, if he has a script, why is he stuttering? Because I'm nervous. And to be nervous sometimes is not a bad thing. Like I told a young man just yesterday, matter of fact, I told him, I said, to be nervous is to be good, because if you're nervous, it proves that it's not rehearsed. It proves that whatever happens is naturally happening. In the sense, I was talking to a young man, I was telling that young man, I said, he was talking about preaching. I say young man, this young man was 14 years old, same age as my son, and he's preaching. I thank God for that. And I gave him the same story that I gave another young man that started preaching when he was under the age of 18. And I told him the same thing. And I told him the same thing. I said, to be nervous is to be good. That way it's not rehearsed, it's not forced. That lets you know that God's in it. So if you see me staring down off into space or stuttering, I'm reading the script. But not everything's on the script. As you can see, it's just some of this stuff is highlighted. And that's what I do. I glance down and take a highlight, and then I apply it to whatever the topic is, the title or the reasoning. So, all right, to get into the definitions. The definitions, or notes as I like to call them, allow. Allow is to give permission, grant as one's right, or to take into consideration. Circumstance. Circumstance is any condition, be it detail, part, time, place, or manner. Any condition. Motionless. Motionless is to be absolutely still or death-like state. Struggle. Struggle is defined as to advance with effort, to move about, to escape from something. Push. Push is summed up as a physical force, a mental determination, or known as press with force. Issue. Issue is defined as the ultimate result or event or outcome. Once again, the verses be coming from Job chapter 1, verse 20 through 22, Job 13, verse 15, Job 14, verse 14, and Job 42, verse 16 and 17. Verse 20 reads, Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshipped. Verse 21 reads, and said, Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thence. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Verse 22 says, In all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. All right, Job 13, verse 15 reads, Through his, it though he slay me, yet will I trust in him, but I will maintain my own ways before him. Job 14:14 reads, "If a man die, shall he live again? All the days of my appointed time will I want till my change come." Job 42 verse 16 and 17 reads, "After this he lived, Job, 140 years, and saw his sons and his sons' sons, and even 4 generations. So Job died, being old and full of days." I was reading up Job 1 verse 20 through 22, 13 verse 15, 14 verse 14, and Job 42 verse 16 and 17. Now, to revert this back to, like I said, the reasoning of this one, it says, "Let the chips fall where they may lay," and the title once again is trying to push the issues. And that's what we do. Like I said before, we try to interject ourselves, we try to change it. But Job does not. It actually says that in verse 22, it says, "In all this, Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly." Through all this going on, him stuck in the middle between God and the devil's trying to hurt his life and trying to turn Job away from God, Job did not go against God, despite whatever it is. Like I said, if you don't know the book of Job, I highly recommend it. So, but this right here is just a skim over of verses, from the first chapter all the way to chapter 42. So, all right, once again, to break this down, it says, verse 20, "Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshipped." Now, this is happening after the fact Job has got his first bit of bad news. Job has got his first bit of bad news, and despite what's going on, Job, he arose from wherever he was currently at, and he rent his mantle, meaning he got up, he faced it, head on. He rent his mantle, meaning he tore everything. He got rid of the stuff that he was dealing with currently, and he said he shaved his head, and that is just, in my eyes, the symbol of he's getting a clear mind. He arose, he got up, he got rid of the stuff, he's clearing his head, and he said he fell down on the ground and worshiped. So he was like, "Hey, something ain't right." Fell down, fell on the ground, meaning he gave up. He's like, "Hey, it's too much of a load," and then he worshiped. And go to verse 21. It says, and said, "Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." This is him worshiping, right? This is him praying. He's like, "Hey, I came to this world with nothing. I'm going to go out this world with nothing. The Lord gave me everything I ever had, and the Lord can take it away. He has taken it away." And he said, "Hey, thank you, Lord." He's thanking God for what he had when he had it, even though he didn't really have it. And verse 22 says, "In all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly." He's basically saying, hey, he did nothing against God. He encouraged God. He's like, "Hey, I've been blessed. I've been blessed. So if I ain't got it no more, I had it for a moment." That was the breaking down of verse 20 through 22 of Job 1. And Job 13 verse 15, it says, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him, but I will maintain my own ways before him. Break this down, it's more stuff that just happened. Some more stuff that happened. Everybody's like, "Hey man, Job, if I was you, man, I don't know what you did. Go repent. You done something. You pissed somebody off." And Job's like, "Hey, though he slay me, I will not." He said, "Yet I would trust in him." He's like, basically, he's like, "If the Lord take me out, do all this, Lord take me out." And he's like, "Hey, I still trust him because there's a reason. My life is an example. That's it. Was basically saying, it's like, hey, I'm going through this as an example for y'all. Y'all not picking it up, but hey, I'm understanding that. And he said, I would maintain my own ways before him. He's like, I will continue going on the path. I was worshiping him in the beginning. I will continue worshiping him. This is 12 chapters later. That was in, I get first 3 verses I gave you was in chapter 1. This is 12 chapters later. This is chapter 13. And he's still saying the same thing. Hey, you want to kill me? Kill me. Hey, I'm yours to kill. You know, I got a better days ahead. So, all right. Now go to the next chapter, chapter 14, verse 14. It says, if a man die, shall he live again? All the days of my appointed time will I wait till my change come. All right. This is right here. Hey, this next chapter. Some more stuff that came. So, solid. And he says here, it says, if I die, shall he live again? If a man dies, shall he live again? He's basically, like I just said in the last chapter, like he said in the last chapter, he's like, hey, my life example. If I die, if it's the worst it's gonna get, I'm golden. That's when you know you're talking to a true Christian, because every true Christian will say that. There's better days ahead. That's basically what he's saying. There's better days ahead. He's saying, if I die, if a man die, shall he live again? Hey, if his body gone, this body gone. I ain't got to worry about no more back problems. I ain't got to worry about no more blood work. I ain't got to worry about no more mortgage. I ain't got to worry about all these anything. No more worries. And he said, go live again. Meaning his soul will be risen. It'll be in a better place. It'll be in the mansion of heaven. It goes on. It says, he said right here. It said, all the days of my appointed time will I wait. He's like, hey, if I die today, or die next week, or die a year from now, if I'm going through this, I know eventually I'm going to die and still get better benefits. It says, till my change come. Like I said, he know you're going to get better benefits after this. If he got to suffer for a while, just suffer for a while. All right, now, we can see in the beginning, he boom, he rose, he did his stuff, he worshiped. When 12 chapters later, he's still concrete feet, 10 toes down, and boom, the next chapter after, he hears some more bad news. He said, hey, let's bring it on. Now, go through all that from chapter 1, chapter 13, chapter 14. Now he's still with the whole time. Don't think the devil let up on him. That's the devil. The devil would do that. He does that. He's good at it. If he don't do it, he sends somebody in your life to do it. So, all right, now this is 42. This is 41 verses. It's many, because it says right here in 40, it's verse 16. It says, after this lived Job and 140 years, and he saw his sons and his sons' sons, even 4 generations. So Job died being old and full of days. Through all adversity, as they say, through everything life threw at him. The devil threw at him, through all his friends, through all his wife, through everybody around him, the whole town. Job stayed solid. 10 toes down. He was worshiping him in the beginning, thanks for everything in the beginning, and at the end he went through it. He was like, hey, solid. Concrete, just like the wall that's behind me. He was solid. That right there, you know he was on solid rock right there. And you know, Christians, if you're a Christian, you heard that, I want you to comment amen, because you know when you're on solid foundation. And Job knew he was on solid foundation from the beginning to the end. That's what we all need to be right there. Job is an example of how every Christian should be. You should be always abounding in God's love, giving God appreciation. You should be giving God thanks. But despite what you have now, despite what you had yesterday, despite what you try to get in the future, be thankful. Job was thankful. Job never went against God. Job was a good example of what we all should be. And that sums up the whole book of Job. But I recommend, no matter what you're going through in life, read, study, and Job is a good book to learn from. All right, Now, to go back, with all that said, to go back to these notes. Allow, once again, it says to give permission to grant as one's right to take into consideration. That was Job. Job from 1 to 42. Job gave permission. He's like, God, if I'm an example, if my life is going to be an example, let it be an example. He said, as also says, grant as one's right. He knew as long as he stayed the course, he gonna get better reward at the end, despite how bad it was. It said to take into consideration. He took the idea. He knew someone right, but did not go against God. He knew that was the ultimate wrong. Circumstances, any condition, be it detailed, be it a part of something, be it time of something, be it a place, or be it the manner of it. That's any condition is a circumstance. Any condition. And Job went through a lot of conditions. He went through a lot of circumstances. He went through a lot of details, a lot of bad parts, a lot of bad times, a lot of bad places, a lot of bad manner of situations. But Job stayed, like I said, 10 toes down. When I say 10 toes down, that means he stood up, planet didn't go nowhere. He was against everything. Faced it head on. Motionless. Motionless is defined as absolutely still, death-like state. Now, he was motionless in his faith. He didn't. That's why it's called a straight and narrow. He was boom. He had his navigations on. His head sucker was pointing to heaven. That was his little icon was telling what route he had to go, and he stayed on that route right there. He was motionless in his faith. His faith was pointing northward, and he was going to heaven. Regardless of everything, he proved that from time to time. If you, I highly recommend reading the Book of Job. All right, and death-like state. That was everybody else around him. Everybody else around him was in that death-like state. Everybody around him was in a situation where he stayed on the faith side, and they stayed on the hope side and the false side, but he didn't. Struggle is to advance with effort, to move about, to escape from something. Struggle. That was nothing to him. What they say, grow them feathers, become a duck, let it roll off your back. It was rolling off his back. He knew struggle. That's life. That's life. Life is a struggle. From the time you're born, you need to be preparing to die. That's what the preacher was talking about. From the time you're born, you need to be preparing to die, because it's going to happen. And that's what Job did. He was preparing to die. It said to move about. He moved about through these whole scriptures from chapter 1, verse 1, until chapter 42, verse 17. He moved about through these scriptures using his faith to get him where he needed to be. To escape from something. He escaped his mind, his heart. At first it was in his heart and his mind. Escaped from everybody else is taunting him. Everybody else telling him what he should do. That's what he escaped from. He escaped from them. He escaped from the world. He had the right mindset. He knew the struggle. He escaped from the struggle of the world. Push. Push is the physical force, a mental determination, or simply known as the press forward. Press with force. Physical force. He was pushed around by the devil with physical force. It affected his life, it affected his marriage, it affected his children, it affected his employment, it affected his livelihood, it affected his friends. He was pushed around with physical force by the devil. But one thing he had to push back, and he had the mental determination, he had the heart. He had the determination to push back with his faith. He was pressed with force. of his faith to get him through whatever he was going through. Issue. Issue is defined as the ultimate result of an event or outcome. That's what an issue is. And the ultimate result, the event or outcome to this, the devil did not deter, discourage, or knock off the course of Job's faith. How you know that? The last two verses, like I read to you, in Job 42, verse 16, it reads, after this lived Job 140 years, and he saw his sons, sons, even 4 generations. So Job died being old and full of days. That's Job. His issue was he died being old and full of days. He went through all of it. That's when we know he got strong faith. He didn't complain. I was up there, like I said, we had this camp meeting, and the preacher was talking about the differences of the funerals. He didn't preach many funerals in the time he preached. He said, in one of the funerals, he preached over the victims that were going to hell, and he preached over the victims that were going to heaven. And you can tell by the environment they was around, because at the funeral of the individual that was going to hell, the only people showed up was people that were walking astray. And then they begged and pleaded and wanted the preacher to say something that make him save him, but he gone. He gone. He already gone. He can't preach you to heaven at your funeral. You already gone. Your body's there. Your soul is went where it need to be. Where they're going to be at for eternity. Be it heaven or hell. So that's the issue he was saying. To them, that it was oh no, you got to say something. Say what? That individual's gone. That's another parable in the Bible I done it on my podcast. I think it's the first one, actually. I got more to say. You need to, if you haven't checked that one out, I highly recommend that one. I got more to say. I think it was the very first one on additional prayers. So check that one out. Might learn something. Anyway, so on the side where the individual was going to heaven, they weren't crying and begging the preacher for nothing. They were rejoicing. One of them had regret and sorrow. The other one had rejoicing and singing. One was full of pain. Other one was full of praise. I'd have been to both types of funerals myself. I'd have been to many funerals, unfortunately, but that's not nothing to brag on. But I'm saying I've been at funerals where an individual has passed and the family's talking about the good old days. I'd have been to funerals where they were like, oh man, gone too soon, or we miss him and pray he was still here. And I seen it, and the preacher, I've been to funerals where they try to pat the individuals on the back. If the individual was wrong, the individual was wrong. There's nothing, like I said, there's nothing the preacher can do. The preacher is there for the ones in the aftermath. That's what I was telling you before about the preacher was talking about. We can choose, just like I do this podcast, we can choose to go right, left, up, down, forward, back, whatever, but we can't choose the outcome. You know what I'm saying? Just like I do this podcast, I cannot make individuals listen to this. I can't make individuals watch this. I can't make individuals pick up a Bible and read it. But I know from my experience what happened to me, what my result was when I started reading the Bible, when I started studying, when I started listening, individuals tell me stuff that's positive, that keep me from going negative. I know what changed in my life. All this podcast is for, be it you watch it on YouTube or listening to it on headphones or whatever, is to help individuals. Like I said, that goes back to, like I said, to help others understand that they're not alone, and to unify every day with everyday prayer life. That's all it is. Two things. This whole goal behind this. 2 things. What you do with it, is what you do with it. So, like always, from my house to yours, I want to thank you.